Hi, welcome to Les Lossy Reviews. This is my review for the 2012 album by The Men, Open Your Heart. The Men are a noise rock band out of Brooklyn, and this is their third full-length album. Now, Open Your Heart is an interesting album because all of their other albums have just been noise rock albums to this point. And with Open Your Heart, they explored a lot of different styles. Namely, they explored country, they explored psychedelic music, they explored like surf rock and just like rock and roll on it. Prior to listening to Open Your Heart, I wasn't super familiar with The Men. I had heard an album that came out a couple years back called Immaculata, which was a sort of self-released full-length. And it was really noisy, It like basically as noise rock as it can get. Very punky, verging on punk for sure. And it was great. It was a really fun, interesting album with some of the best cover art I've seen. Now on Open Your Heart, this album is a very accomplished feeling album. And the reason why is because the Men get to play with so many different genres within this album. I think personally that Open Your Heart is really a great example of the album that all bands want to make. And what I mean by that is a lot of bands, what they'll do is they'll go into every album and they'll do like one sort of theme. And then maybe they'll change their genre for the next album, and then they'll change their genre again for the next one. Maybe they won't, but what the Men have done on Open Your Heart is they've made every single song so fundamentally different sounding that it's really interesting and it's also, I think personally, it's really rare to hear that significant of a genre change within an album. So it's really like the holy grail of album making, and I think that this is an album that a lot of artists should be jealous over. Not because it's a perfect album, it's not, but they got to try something that I think that's a little bit juicy that people don't get to do very often. Open Your Heart starts off really punky with the song Turn It Around and Animal. Really, really punky, and almost like, I would say that like it's so noise punky that it sounds a lot like, to me, like Osrotten. Like a really standard American hardcore band. It has that feel to it. I think that really edgy, thrashy, bruiser sounding punk that it really appeals to me. And it was a really bold choice right up front of this album. Open Your Heart though, it switches gears. It switches gears into this really country sound with a country song, very literal. And what it really gets across to me is this very like West Texas-y feeling, just going across the county line. And it's also an instrumental track. So that's something that wasn't, apparent in the first two songs. It's just something that's completely bare bones, really country sounding. And that style resonates on the rest of the album, on all the other tracks. So after Country Song, it goes into Oscillation, which again, you can hear that Americana feel to it. And Please Don't Go Away. And then the title track, Open Your Heart, and all of these songs have a really, just really harsh noise feel to them, which was sort of a transition from going from punk then to a country feel, and now to like a noise feel. Especially on Open Your Heart, it's got this really killer riff at 2 minutes that is just a spotlight on the album for sure. And then on the song Candy, it completely switches gears again. It's like a really upbeat, sort of what you'd find on like a singer-songwriter type album. Just standard rock and roll, sounded really sweet almost, and like I said, really upbeat. So again, just really completely changing gears. This album really surprised me, and it's one of the few albums that I can't just punch a theme onto it. Like most albums I said, this is an album where I feel like I'm in a castle, or I'm in a dungeon, or I'm flying through the sky on a jetpack or something like that. I can't do that with this album. There's just so many different sounds going on here. It's so dynamic that I can't just pigeonhole it to a certain sort of thematic style. And I really like that as a reviewer because it really challenged me. I give this album an 8, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. Really, really solid album by the Men. Really interesting, and there's a lot here for a lot of different listeners. Thanks for watching my review. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll have another one up soon.